The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. First we shall look at the author. Hans Christian Andersen was born in 1805 and died in 1875. He was a Danish writer. Danish writer means he was from Denmark. Danish writer. And he was popularly known as H.C. Andersen. Hans Christian Andersen is his full name, but people usually call him H.C. Andersen. What was he known for? He is known for his novels, short stories, autobiographies, and poetry. He was a novelist, he was a short story writer, he was an autobiographer, and he was a poet. And above all this, he was a fairy tale teller. So his short stories are of special kind known as the fairy tale. He is best known for his fairy tales, most frequently translated work. So in the world, one of the most frequently translated works are that of Andersen, because he has become so popular with his fairy tales. What is a fairy tale? You should know what is a fairy tale in order to understand the Little Match Girl. I will be spending little time on fairy tale, what it is, and what is the background of the author. Without that, you will not follow the story. So what is a fairy tale? A fairy tale is a tale, it's a story. It's a short story of a different genre, very close to folklore. So what are the specialities in this? There is a lot of imagination, fantasy. Fantasy is one of the main characteristics. There is a lot of imagination taking place. And there is adventure. The hero is normally very adventurous. Also, as the word calls fairies, there are also fairies as a part of the story, witches, fairies, and there will be animals talking. All these things are possible in a fairy tale. Fairy tales are very popular and is very effective because it increases the imagination power of the students. Even students of smaller classes are advised to read fairy tales because that enhances their thinking. That helps them to think better and become very creative in their writing and thinking. Those who are got used to this kind of fairy tales become great people in their future life. I think you are familiar with many fairy tales. The Beauty and the Beast, I think many of you must have watched it somewhere or other. The Beauty and the Beast. Fairy tales have a great message to convey also. Through fairy tales, students are taught moral values, how to face life. One of the famous fairy tales of Andersen is The Prince and the Pea. The Prince and the Pea. Have you read it? Very interesting one. The Prince and the Pea. Pea is peanut. Once there was a prince and he wanted to get married. He was looking for a princess who is truly a princess. See, so many women come in ready to marry him. He interviews them and he finds that none of them are fit. If he finds a fitting candidate after the interview, he wants to have a Pea Test, peanut test. So one fine morning, one young and attractive girl walks in. It was raining, and through the rain she comes in and she asks for a little shelter. So the prince asks some questions and the princess answers them so well. He was so much impressed. Then he wanted to conduct the Pea Test. What is the Pea Test? So she stays that night there because she couldn't make her journey back. So the servants arranged the bed. He had told them to place a peanut on the bed, and on their mattresses are kept. How many mattresses were there? 7 mattresses. Peanut is on the bed, on that one mattress, on that another mattress. Like that there were 7 mattresses. And the princess went to bed. Next day when princess was invited for the breakfast, she looked very dull, looked very sleepy. Then the prince and others asked her, "Did you sleep well? How was the night?" And she said, "Horrible, very bad night. I couldn't sleep at all." Then they asked what happened. Then she said, "There was a bump underneath my mattress. I searched and searched. At the end I found there was a huge thing under my mattress." And they asked what was it. And she said, "It was a peanut. Because of that one, I could not sleep." So it was a sensitivity test. How sensitive was the prince? If she is a real prince, she should be very, very sensitive. So in spite of keeping the peanut under the 7 mattresses, she could not sleep. So the prince said, yes, she is a real princess. So they got married and they lived happily forever. It's a fairy tale. So fairy tales are like that. Highly imaginative, impossible things. So in Little Match Girl also you will find so many things which are impossible. So don't ask, how is it possible? How could she see through the wall? How could the little girl see her grandmother? How did she talk to her? How did she go to heaven and still remain there? Don't ask so many questions, because all these things are possible as it is a fairy tale. So fairy tales are like that, highly imaginative and adventurous, and we have this Little Match Girl. So Hans Christian became an innovator in the method of using stories. He became an innovator means introduced something very new to the world through his writing of fairy tales, and was a powerful tool to teach students, and students all over the world liked it. His stories went beyond all age and nationality. Hans Christian Andersen's stories went beyond all age and nationality. That is, it was meant for children, but even grown-ups read it and enjoyed it. Even elderly people, they read it and enjoyed it. So it went beyond age, beyond nationality. He was from Denmark, but people of other nations also loved his writing so much, and his writings were immensely translated to so many other languages. So that was the popularity of Hans Christian Andersen. Now we shall look at the background. What do you mean by background? What worked behind the scene? why Anderson wrote like this, or what helped him to write in this manner. Born to poor parents. Anderson's parents were very poor, coming from a very poor family. As a result, he did not have sufficient food to eat, did not have sufficient money to make merry. So, he led a very, very poor life. That affected his writings. He was a victim of rigid class structure and had to fight to survive. This is a very, very important point, especially to understand the little match girl. He should pay attention to this point. That is, he was a victim of rigid class structure and had to fight to survive. What do you mean by class structure? That is dividing the society into classes. A, B, C, D. You have divisions. 10th A, 10th B, 10th C, 10th D. Like that, there are classes also. Classes can be divided on the basis of your finance, your financial position. So economic reasons. It could be social. From which part of society you are coming from. Whether you belong to a high caste or low caste. From the social positioning, it could be political, it could be geographical. So, various reasons could contribute to class structure. So, he was brought up in a very, very rigid, means very strong class structure. And he suffered because of that. And in order to become somebody, he had to struggle through it. That will be reflected in his writings, especially in the Little Match Girl. Often he will be making reference to this class structure, very clearly depicted in the Little Match Girl. Then he had an unpleasant school life. How do you all enjoy your school life? I think you are having a good time. This year, of course, you are caught up with Corona. Otherwise, throughout your school life, starting from your KG sections till now, you enjoyed your school life. You enjoyed your company with teachers, headmaster or headmistress, and with your companions. But Anderson had a tough time in the school because he had a very bad headmaster. A headmaster who was highly authoritarian, who was not at all friendly with students. Because of that, he suffered. This also will be expressed in his stories, especially the relationship between the little match girl and her daddy. That is very well seen in this background of his. What kind of stories did he write? He can have two kinds of stories. One is optimistic, another one is pessimistic. Optimistic and pessimistic. What is the meaning of optimistic? Optimistic is positive, which has a positive effect. That is, goodness and beauty triumph. Goodness and beauty triumph. That is, all that is good will have victory at the end. That is optimistic. Pessimistic is just opposite of that. What is pessimistic? Pessimistic is negative. The evil triumphs. Goodness and beauty do not triumph. Triumph means to become victorious. So goodness and beauty, they don't have victory at the end. They are defeated and the evil triumphs. That is pessimistic. So he wrote both kinds of fairy tales, but most of his fairy tales were pessimistic, negative. Only few stories were positive. our story, The Little Match Girl, ends on a positive note. Because the girl, through her imagination, achieved whatever she wanted to. Her greatest desire was to meet grandmother. That was made possible at the end. Therefore, it ends on a positive note. Then another important point is Anderson was not afraid of introducing feelings and ideas that were beyond a child's immediate comprehension. Comprehension is understanding. Anderson was not afraid of introducing feelings and ideas that were beyond a child's immediate understanding. So he had no difficulty in introducing certain feelings and ideas that children could not easily understand. Now many of you told me that, sir, we are finding it difficult to understand The Little Match Girl. I said I have given the notes, I have given PDF format, explained it very well. They said no, still we don't follow. It is because the ideas and feelings here is dealing with are highly complicated ones. Children do not understand them easily. Even then he was not afraid of introducing such feelings into his stories. Why he was not afraid of introducing such feelings and ideas into children, though they did not immediately understand? Immediately understand means as they read or they just go through it, they couldn't understand. They couldn't understand even after studying, but they will be able to understand them when they grow up. As children of smaller classes, they may not understand all these things, but when they grow up, they will be able to understand. What they studied in smaller classes, they will be able to recollect and build their life on that. That's why he was interested in introducing them in his fairy tales. I'll give you some examples. For example, The Little Match Girl. I'm sure you have already read it a few times and you have gone through the PDF format. So the little girl has a conversation with grandmother who died some time back. The grandmother who is no more with her, that is dead, she has conversation with her. How much do the children understand? Very little. Very little. She was carried to the heaven. What do children understand? They do not understand. Then speaks about transparent wall, and through which the little match girl could see what is happening on the other side. He speaks about poverty that the girl faces. Anderson speaks about class distinctions, class struggle in the short story. What do the students understand? They do not understand much now. But when they grow up, when they experience these things in life, they will be able to understand. So that is the meaning of he was not afraid of introducing feelings and ideas which were not understood by children immediately. So it's going to be very beautiful story. It's a fairy tale and we will enjoy doing it. The rest of it we shall see tomorrow. Thank you.